What's up, Tyler?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good.
Is it?
I've drank yeah.
Good.
I'm looking at a coffee on my desk and realizing I've had 3 coffees today.
I had 2.
Yeah. And you know what? I met Ken this morning. We were looking at a potential new shop. But I got there early and I turned around and my favorite coffee shop was around the corner, which happens to be called Tradesman.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really cool spot. And so I went and got a coffee. We went toward the property and we walk out to the car and I'm like, so what do you think? And he's like, hey, do you want to go to Tradesman for a coffee and we'll talk about it? I'm like, sure. And I get there and I'm like, the girl's looking at me like, weren't you just here? And he's like, do you want something? I'm like, I actually just had a cold brew with 2 shots of espresso in it. But yes, I will do another coffee.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. And here I am sitting in the afternoon with a cold brew sitting on my desk. But I'm not going to finish that because I know if I do, I won't feel good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's good.
Nice.
And we have a pretty cool guest on today.
Yeah.
So
I was unaware. I guess you had dealt with him before. I had never met him.
So when I don't even know, 2 years ago when we asked a bunch of you guys, hey, help us get Mike Rowe on the podcast. A couple of you said, you got to talk to this guy, Chuck. He's his right-hand man. That's how you're going to get Mike on the podcast. I DM'd Chuck multiple years ago, and he ignored me. And somehow, I think it was after I had Mike on a live last year, I continued to weasel and beg and ask for someone's email that I could talk to, Chuck or Mike. And someone connected me with Chuck, and I sent him an email, and he ignored it. And I let it simmer for a few months, and then I followed up, and I was like, "Hey, are you interested in talking?" Like, it was like a very direct, like one-liner. And he wrote back this huge, long response that he started with, "Hey, I had this in my drafts, and I never sent it."
Oh.
And whatever, long story short, we hop on a call, we chat, and we got him on the podcast today. So we're going to talk about Mike Rowe Works, our thoughts on the industry, college versus not going to college, and how the respect needs to be and is being promoted equally. We talk about robots putting in toilets. We talk about plumber's cleavage,
Or
which
butt
sounds
cleavage.
that sounds way. I don't want to use the wrong word here.
I liked it. I'd never thought of it in that sense, but
I don't want to say appropriate. I don't know. It just sounds better than butt crack.
Yeah.
Plumber's crack.
More refined.
More refined.
It gives more respect to the plumbing trade.
It does. It's like, sorry about my plumber's cleavage. I left my belt at home today.
I enjoyed talking to him. I wanted to dig into his experience and his background and not necessarily just what he does with Mike, because obviously Chuck is a grown man. I know I was listening to his podcast. He just celebrated a 60th birthday, and he has a history, a past, a career, and is now doing what he does for Mike. But I wanted to find out what led up to that, not necessarily contingent on what he's done with Mike and his relationship with Mike, but somewhat independent of that. But that was difficult because he's known Mike since high school. And they have a past together, and he relates a lot of what he does to his experience with Mike and what Mike has spoken about. But it was a fun conversation.
Andersen is dedicated to designing and manufacturing products that are strong, reliable, and ready to perform. And they validate that by testing and testing and testing again until they know that their windows and doors perform to their high standards.
They take the time to validate performance of their materials as well as the performance of fully assembled products. They test their products to failure, not just to pass, meaning they test beyond the threshold required by the industry, because they want to know that they're supplying a product that will perform in the most extreme conditions. And by the most extreme conditions, they may or may not mean us firing a 2x4 into them. in a controlled environment.
Let's be clear. There was a 2x4 firing rocket machine in an environment that was designed for that. We actually have a video of that has not been shared publicly yet. Did you watch it?
I have not,
Oh, Tyler,
but
you
I'm
gotta
working
watch it,
on
man.
building my own 2x4 firing rocket powered machine. So,
Are you gonna have a laser on it like this one did?
I mean, I might just hold the laser separately.
Fair enough. Well, if products withstand Anderson's best in class test, which includes the 2x4 rocket machine, you can be confident that they will withstand the test of time for your clients. Visit AndersonWindows.com for more information.
And speaking of Windows, I'm not sure if Ellie from Anderson had reached out to you this week, but she shot me a text regarding our podcast from last week,
Oh,
and she was like, "Yo, the car window situation that you guys were talking about not being able to roll down a window while driving without the wind
mm-hmm,
buffeting and driving you insane is like a real life conversation that her and Casey always have."
mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that was I was cracking up when she first sent it to me. I was like, "What's she talking about?" And then I was like, "Oh, I completely forgot that we talked about that." But listen, Anderson does not install Windows in a car, but if they did, you wouldn't have that experience.
It was. And before we get into it, if you guys do want to check out the foundation, head over to mikeroweworks.org. Tyler, you know what one of the most exciting aspects for a client when building a new home or remodeling their space is picking out the finishes?
Ready to get them involved in the process?
Come on, more emphasis behind that. With Buildertrend's construction management platform, clients can choose selections online, view the project running total, and sign contracts electronically to keep the job moving forward.
By centralizing all communication between your team, clients, and subs, last minute decisions will no longer derail your projects.
And to see more of Buildertrend's selections tool in action and learn how it can help you give clients a great experience, go to buildertrend.com/MC demo. Chuck,
What is going on?
what's up, my man?
Living the dream. Living the dream. How
How's
about
your
you?
how was your birthday celebration?
Oh, it was fantastic, man. I was living life large in um, Mary's second house. I don't know if you ever met Mary. That's the president of Microworks,
Okay.
and she's got a house down in Laguna that
Nice.
has this amazing view of. I just don't post anything because I'm, you know, too lazy, I guess. But let me find you a picture and show you the view
I love
that
Laguna.
was. Oh man, it's so gorgeous.
We
It's
we've stayed at that. I think it's the Laguna Hotel, right as you come down the hill into the beach.
mm,
Right on the corner there. We've stayed there a couple times.
yeah. This is a view from like one of her balconies.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's up
It's
there, huh?
ridiculous, yeah. And you could. What's crazy is that you don't really hear the cars, but you can hear the ocean
Oh, interesting.
like all the time. It's amazing.
Huh.
Hey, how are you?
It's
I'm
great.
Tyler. Nice to
Hi,
meet you.
hi
You too.
Tyler. Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Not bad. Hungry.
So
Um,
is it? Hey
You
man,
know?
get it while you can. That's the way I see it.
how
Um,
how did you make out with that bathtub project that we talked about?
oh my gosh, dude. It's honestly they're taking a break right now. Today is supposed to be the last day. They couldn't do it. They couldn't find anybody to fabricate a tub. They wound up having to make jacuzzi made a custom shower pan, and I was like,
Mm,
jacuzzi will make a custom shower pan, but they won't make a
not a
custom
tub.
tub. And he said, the guy was like, no, they won't. So it's going to affect my real resale value. I'm going to have a conversation with, I don't know, one of the managers or whoever
Mm,
at the end of this day to talk about what they're going to do for me.
mm.
Since I'm not kidding, Nick, this started
Wait, what
October
happened? I'm
5th
missing out on this.
or 6th. Tyler, so one day I'm walking through Costco, and this very attractive Asian woman wearing a mask goes, "Hey, do you need a new bathtub?" And I said, or bathroom, she said. And I said, well, not, I said, actually, I only need a new shower and bath. And she goes, oh, well, that's perfect. That's just what we do. We don't do the cabinets and stuff. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, well, tell me about it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I sign on the dotted line for 2 bathrooms. And the guy tells me, oh, yeah, we can do everything. So we can do this. We can take out your tub, put in a shower. We can take out your shower and put in a tub, because I wanted a tub in the guest bath rather than the master bath. And so it was like, okay, great. I sign on the dotted line. I get on the list. It's like, it'll be 3 months before they start. This was in June of last year, right? Okay, all right. So it starts. I think it didn't start until October for whatever reason. It got delayed again. So it was supposed to be 4 days: 2 for the bathtub, 2 for the shower. And just from the first day, they cut a water line while they were, and flooded my first floor. That was like, welcome to this. So obviously already it's going to be over 2 days. And I won't talk you through the whole thing, but it took over. I mean, it's still not done. They're taking a lunch break right now, because I told them, I said, I'm doing this podcast. You got to go take lunch or whatever. But yeah, they took out the tub, or they took out the tub, put in a shower, had to move it, and every inspector was like, nope, nope, that's not gonna fly. Nope, can't do that. Nope, it's got to be 2 inch, got to be inch and a half, whatever it was. And it was just maddening. And I'm in a townhouse, right? So I share a wall, and my tub went into a santee that served my neighbor's tub as well. They broke the santee, broke her pipe going into the santee. I had to like call my neighbor and go, do not take a bath, so. And it went on from there. And they finally get the thing in months later, Tyler. Months later, they finally get the thing in. And I'm stepping on the floor, and it's like giving around the drain. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. And I call up the guy, because they just did it and left. And I call up the guy and I go, something's wrong with this. This is not, I don't, and he goes, what's happening? And I tell him, and he goes, oh yeah, we're going to have to replace that. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, great. Well, you can't replace that. And, they had already started on the second shower. And so they had demoed it. So I had this shower that didn't work properly for the longest time, that I had to just deal with while they pulled out the shower and went to put in a bathtub. And it was like, oh, no, you can't put in a bathtub, because there's a beam right there where the drain's gonna be. You can't move the drain over here, because that's gonna tie into where the drain for the toilet, and the toilet has to be the last thing on the train to the outside. And I mean, there are obviously more details, but I don't know that you want to hear them.
But Chuck, I had been trying to reach out to you for a long time. We randomly hopped on a Zoom call, we chatted, and then you
Yeah.
followed up randomly and was like, "Hey, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Can you hop on a call?" And I'm like, "I mean, yeah, whatever whatever you need." And he's like, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were like, "Hey, do you know if they make a bathtub that is a center drain that is offset towards the back by X amount of inches?" And I
Hmm.
was like, "No, but I'm sure I could Google it, but I'm also sure that you've probably done that, and I'm your
Correct.
I'm your last resort." To which we end up being on the call, and I found something that apparently was it, and then you look into the specs and realize it's like a center drain, so it doesn't exist. And that's where I said, well, you could fabricate a tub, but the problem with fabricating a tub is that plumbing code doesn't always allow a fabricated tub, as opposed to fabricating a shower pan. And I think that's what you're getting at, is that's what they ended up determining, is that they can't fabricate a tub, but they can fabricate a shower pan.
I suppose so. I mean, I never felt like I got a fully satisfactory answer about it, but I can tell you this, that my place was built in 1982, and I think things were a lot more lax then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there was this beam, the drain came right over top of this beam in the shower that was there, and they carved out a portion of the beam to allow the drain to come in. And So it had to be in that space, but and that was dead center in where the pan would be or the tub would be. So it would be like a regular tub with a drain in dead center, not back center, but dead center. And ultimately, even then, they were like, we can't put even just a shower pan there on the dead center on the beam because we need to put an S right underneath. We can't put it off to the side, which is what they had done in 1982. So they ordered the custom pan, which moved the drain over so that it wasn't directly on top of this beam.
Mhm.
And now that shower works fine. I used it today. It's doing all right. But I mean, I have a B team that's waiting in the wings to replace all my cabinets and my flooring. And they, this guy's like, every time I call him, he's like, just don't call me until they're completely done. Because I call them up and I say, yeah, they're going to be done on Wednesday, and then so you can start on Thursday. And then I'm like calling them up on Wednesday, going, oh no, sorry,
I
sorry,
didn't
sorry,
know
it's
that
going to be a little bit
Costco sold
longer.
bathrooms.
And this has been going on for 2 months.
They sell
That
everything.
I mean, maybe they don't.
I mean, honestly, it's like it was this company had like one of those kiosks in
Yeah.
there. You know how you go by and there's the Vitamix guy and there's the guy who, the lady who's selling Sebamed soap or whatever. But this woman just came up and showed me this brochure. It all looked great, and no.
Chuck, I think the most interesting part of this is
Hmm.
that, like, you're associated with arguably the one of the guys that is most connected to the trades,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're dealing with it, and I think that I mean, it's a great segue into everything that, you guys stand for at Micro Works and just the trades in general, but, I mean, you've had to have thought of that, right?
Yes, it's kind of like the the cobbler's kids don't
Mhm.
have shoes, right? You would think if anybody's going to get this done right, it would be somebody connected with the Microworks Foundation, but
Yeah.
uh, maybe it's bad luck. Maybe it's
I think
I
it's
I
I
don't
mean,
think
know.
it's
that I
Costco.
don't I don't intend this in any condescending way, but I feel like Costco probably isn't the move for the bathroom renovation. Like
Now you
there's
tell me,
nobody in
Tyler.
your
Now
court that
you
you
tell
ran
me.
that by, or was it just like, listen, I need hot dog buns, 6 gallons of milk, eggs, an inner tube, and 2 bathrooms.
and and 2 bathrooms. Yeah, just I pulled the little cardboard card, put it in my basket, and, they carried
Amazing.
a bathtub out to my car. Yeah, I know it was silly, but at the time, I had a guy who's a neighbor of mine. He lives in the building with me, and I thought, well, this guy's not gonna screw me at all because I know where he lives. It's like right across the hall. So I thought, well, yeah, and his family owns a construction company and everything. I had him do it bid, and it was good to do the bathrooms, but he said the only thing I can't do is the tubs and showers. He goes and
Mm.
do everything else, and do the flooring, do the lighting, do the cabinets, the tile, whatever, mirrors, blah blah blah. But I can't do that. And you'll have to find somebody else for that. And his bid was very, very good. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. And so when this woman said, hey, listen, all we do are bathtubs and showers, I'm like, that's all I need.
Feel like this was a
But in
setup.
the meantime, it took that, right?
It's like one of those
I've
Facebook
played.
ads. It's like, I really need this, and then all of a sudden it's like, here's the ad for it. It's like, there it is.
Yeah. 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 It was a cosmic joke for
Mm,
sure. But I mean, honestly, though, I'm like, I don't know if I think it's just my personality, and the fact that I live alone, although I had people coming for a couple of weeks. So it really, I had my buddy and his wife come and stay with me for 2 weeks. And so we all had to shower in the lousy shower with a faulty, that felt like it was going to break at any minute,
the
for
trampoline.
2 weeks. But I was kind of laid back. I took it in stride. I
Mm.
understand when things go wrong, And look, I also, while a lot of this was the company's fault, i.e., cutting through a water line,
Mm.
et cetera, not putting in the proper, they put in, 2-inch pipes, and the city of Los Angeles, right? Going from a tub, which requires 2-inch, to a shower, which requires 1.5. The city of Los Angeles said, you got to make it 1.5. And it's like, you understand that two is better, right? That a 2-inch pipe is better. It's bigger. It's less chance of overflow.
Mm.
No, well, it's a shower, so it's got to be 1.5. I just
I
felt
feel
like
like
I was
that's
dealing with,
backwards.
Stephen Root from.
Like, I'm pretty sure shower code is
Yeah.
What
2
do you mean?
inch, bathtub's inch and a half. Yeah.
That's what I
Um,
meant.
I mean, so
Mm.
the reason that they do the 2 inch for the shower is because there's no overflow and you only have 2, 3 inches. So it needs the water volume to drain faster. Like a bathtub has an overflow. And also, if a bathtub starts to
Ah.
overflow, you have like 18 inches that water can come up, where it's not quite as large of an emergency as if a shower starts to overflow. You have like 3 inches worth of water volume before it starts spilling over into your the rest of your living space. Yeah, so usually when you go to switch them, you
Y
need 2 inch for a shower, inch and a half for a bathtub.
you know, on that same
Right. Okay.
token, I recently found out that in a vertical, like, riser situation, that like, when I picture water dropping down like a vertical riser, I just think
Mhm,
water is just falling straight down the
mhm.
pipe, and it actually rides the outer
Yeah.
diameter, or the inner diameter of that pipe, which I don't know, fun fact, I suppose. Chuck, real quick, your video is for some reason, like, 3 seconds behind you.
Okay, check 1, 2.
Oh,
2.
much better.
Alright.
Even the quality's better. Um, I was just telling Tyler that I gave you a little crap when we first hopped on the phone the first time, saying that you didn't reply to my Instagram message, but it's when you first told me the story about using the Costco thing, I was like, "All right, I'll hear him out and see how I can be helpful in this situation."
No, you had a great idea. I mean, that was a really great idea. You suggested contacting a boat manufacturer, a boat
Mm,
fabricator, because they could make a
to
tub.
build a fiberglass, yeah, to
Yeah,
build
to
a
build a
fiberglass tub,
fiberglass tub,
yeah.
and I passed that along to the company that will not be named. Um,
But the thing is, it's like you gotta, that's where, like, I see it a lot in even in our market, where I'll throw out an idea like that and people are
mm,
like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "That's no, no, no. You buy a tub." It's like,
right,
why can't we go back to building it? Why can't we utilize, again, someone that's in a trade that can manufacture this, rather than relying on buying it off the shelf at a Costco or box store, right? Costco's gonna hate this podcast, and
well, I'll tell you.
someone's gonna bark this up their chain, and next thing we know,
Yeah. Well, they should be more careful, with, who they allow to sell, to be a vendor in their little kiosk as
we're
you're leaving,
we're
or
gonna get an email be like, "Hey, for the record, that person did not belong in the store and they snuck in, and we're taking advantage of our customer."
that would
It's
be
gonna it's gonna be a thing. It's
that
gonna
would be
be a thing.
something. Yeah.
Chuck, how long have you been working, with Mike?
I started working with him about 20 years ago. Just so you know, like, my background is nothing to do with the trades. I was an actor for many, many years, and Mike was doing endorsement deals. I just
Mhm,
remained friends. We went to high school together. I don't know if you knew that, but I've known Mike since 1979.
mhm.
And he would have an endorsement deal where he'd be doing something for Kimberly Clark or Caterpillar or whomever, and he'd have an idea for the creative, and he would need somebody there with him to bounce off of. And he knew I was an actor and, in town. He would say, "Hey, do you want to come do this thing with me?" And so I started doing it. And it was always a lot of fun because he never likes to work with a script. He likes to just work with an idea and do a lot of, just back and forth stuff, a lot of improv. And so I did that for about 10 years on and off with him. I was still just doing my own stuff, and every now and then he'd call and it would be Ford or whomever, you know.
Mm.
And I would work with him, and then one day Mary, who's the president of his company, said, "Hey, you work with us so much. Why don't you come work for us? We're going to be doing this podcast, and I think you could really help with it." And that was, I think, 2015.
Okay.
So and yeah, been there ever since.
And you're a creative producer for Mike Rowe Works?
Yes, and I am that, which is sort of the, for-profit company, but there's also the
Mhm.
Microworks Foundation, which is
Mm.
not for profit. I am on the board of the foundation, but I'm not paid. That's all volunteer. I whatever I do for the, Microworks Foundation, is just, pro bono, as they say.
What's the difference between the 2, the profit and nonprofit?
Well, the foundation is a 501(c)(3), which is, I think there's, I mean, this is all, so it's all public, I think there's one, full-time employee and then a couple of interns,
Mhm.
and everybody else is a volunteer, like, I was helping with the social media for a while until we got the interns, and you'll see me on that page, all different places. If you scroll back, I do very little nowadays, now that we have the interns doing it, but there's also, like, I help with the strategizing for, the campaigns when we're going to do the work ethic scholarship program. I also review applications and stuff like that. And yeah, they're two totally separate things, but they have kind of the same name.
That's cool. And so when I look at the foundation, you know, or I guess for those that don't know what you guys do with the foundation,
Mhm.
you guys are helping promote the trades and really get people involved, but can you give us like the nitty-gritty behind that?
Well, the biggest thing that we do, when Mike started this back in 2008, the Microworks Foundation, he started up on Labor Day 2008 with the idea that it would be a PR campaign for the trades. The way Mike
Mhm.
likes to say it is, he realizes he's addicted to smooth roads, hot and cold running water, and the poo going away when you flush the toilet. Right? So he he did dirty jobs. It really came out of dirty jobs and his grandfather. His grandfather was a tradesman. Mike says that he was an electrician, but he also could, like, he built the house that they lived in from without a blueprint. And
Mm,
Mike said that he wanted to follow in his grandfather's footsteps, but apparently didn't have the same sort of gene that his grandfather did. And his grandfather told him to get a different toolbox. And so he went into television broadcasting, and he was doing a show where they did a weekly segment. It was an evening magazine was the name of the show. It was a magazine show, and he decided to do this segment called Somebody's Gotta Do It, about, people who do the jobs that nobody sees, like who takes care of the sewers,
mhm,
all of these, where does our meat come from? These
mhm,
things that were just not highlighted and hadn't been on TV before. And he did this segment. It looked kind of fun, and eventually he turned it into Dirty Jobs when he sold the idea to Discovery, and did it there. And what he said he noticed in the years that he did dirty jobs was that everywhere he went, and there were some this was during some lean times, there were always help wanted signs, even though the economy was not great. And he also met a lot of people who were really prospering in the trades. And it just made him think that, and that was the other thing that they were saying, is that they were always looking for people. They were
mhm,
always looking for someone else, and they couldn't find enough people to replace the people who were retiring. Turns out that's a fact, and he started looking into it. For every five that retire, five tradespeople that retire, there's only two that take their place, and that's unsustainable. And so he decided to do something about it, to say, hey, the trades are a good option for opportunity. These are good jobs where you get paid well, and it's a lot cheaper than going to college.
mhm. What about you, like being for your role, right, as you kind of got involved in this and not growing up in the trades and not being in the trades, what has been your like, what was your viewpoint before you got involved? And what is your viewpoint now in terms of just like not so much the respect for the trades because I think that's um, rather obvious, but just how important what you guys are doing is.
Well, I'll tell you, my story is a little similar in that I was, like my dad was a machinist. I had an uncle who was a bricklayer. And I've told this story before, and it's so great. I love this story. My uncle Walter. I'm driving through Baltimore, which is where I grew up. I'm driving through Baltimore with him, and we're on our way somewhere. I think we're to a funeral, sadly. But he goes, "You see that hospital there? I put the foundation in. You know, you see that school over there? I did the whole facade out front. You see that bridge there? I did all the brickwork that you see." You know, and it was like the whole city. It felt like he had built the whole city. And
Mm,
I grew up with him, knowing him, and of course my dad. And I was always taught in my family that you treat the waiter as well as you treat the president. You treat everyone with respect, and in particular, and they made a point to say this, and I think everybody in my family worked with their hands, but you always respect someone who works with their hands, always. And so I had that, you know, innately in me to begin with. But of course, I went off to be an actor. And you would not want to trust me to fix this situation that is happening in my house right now. But when Mike first started this foundation, I thought it really made sense. And when I started looking into it and how desperate the trades need, because we had a counselor, high school counselor, who was like, "You got to go to college. You got to go to college. You don't want to wind up
mm,
like the guy who is work. You've probably seen this poster: work smart, not hard."
mhm,
And you've got
mhm.
the college guy, and you've got the grease monkey who looks really distraught. And
Yeah,
Mike turned that on its head, and he created a new poster that says "work smart and hard."
yeah.
And in when I first started working for them, one of the things that I did was to seek out past recipients because sorry, the first part of the foundation was the PR campaign, and the second part of it is a scholarship.
Mhm,
Where it's called the Work Ethic Scholarship Program. We don't care what your grades were. We don't care how old you are or what you look like. All we care about is that you can demonstrate that you have work ethic because we want to
mhm,
reward that. You're going to show up early, stay late, get the job done. That's what we're looking for. And so once we started doing that, I started reaching out to past recipients who were, who now were working, and I would find their story. Where are they now? And I would do these write-ups on Facebook. We started doing that, and then we started making videos of that, featuring the different people there. And I have tons of stories. Uh, and some of my favorite ones are the people who found the trades as a second career. There's a guy named
mm,
Joshua Loy who was he had 2 degrees. He had a master's, he had a B sorry, he had 3 degrees. He had a master's, basters, a bachelor's and a master's.
I like the combination.
Yeah, and he was teaching English as a second language in Japan. His mom became ill, and he came back to be her caretaker. And while he was staying in her old house taking care of her, the furnace kept breaking down. And so he would call this HVAC guy who came in, and he would fix it. And he's like, "It's really old. This is going to happen a lot, but here's my number. Call me anytime." He showed up in a nice, clean truck and everything. And it kept breaking down. And so this guy kept coming out, and they weren't going to replace the thing. They were just sort of band-aiding it all the time. And, but he saw this guy lived in a nice house. He drove a nice car. They became friends. And, when his mom finally passed, he tried to get a job teaching and couldn't get a job. teaching. It was like he could substitute, and he was substituting during the day, he was substituting at the night, and then one year he does his taxes and he realizes, gosh, I only made like 18 grand last year. He's like, and I'm working 2 jobs basically. And so he talked to his friend and said, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, if I were you, I would do what I did and learn a trade. And so this guy with his 2 degrees, his bastards, he he hangs up his sheepskin, goes and gets some training, and now he's working. He's got a family, a wife, family, nice. Now he has a nice house and a nice car, and is making great money, and has never been happier. I love those stories.
I probably missed it. What year did you start working with this campaign?
Well, I started working at Microworks in 2015. 2014, I believe, was the first year that we started doing the work ethic scholarship program, or that they started. They did the one year
Okay.
before me, and then I came in and was there. Yeah.
So they were like 6 years into it at this point?
No, they were 1 year into it, right? 2014 is when they first started the work ethic scholarship program. I started working 2015.
Okay, okay.
So a year.
I think I was speaking in reference to the 2008 when you had said he had,
Oh, yeah, they didn't
deve
they didn't do the work ethic scholarship program until, yeah,
okay.
what, 6 years later, yes. Mhm.
And at that point, was it pretty far along? Like, when you came on board, what were your other responsibilities?
Well, like, the work ethic scholarship program, like I said, this was all stuff that I did independent of the work I did for, producing the podcast,
Yeah.
Mm.
you know? So really, my work with the foundation is all voluntary, and it was mainly doing social media stories, following up, creating content. We did a show for the first year I was there. Mike and I did a show called Crap, collectibles, rare and precious. And basically, it was like a little TV show where it was part the Tonight Show, part QVC, where basically Mike's behind a desk and I'm sitting next to him off to the side, and he comes in and he goes, well, I got this iPhone when I did Dirty Jobs, the oyster episode, and blah blah blah, and here's the shirt I wore, and we're going to auction it off right now. And then he would describe it the way Mike got the job at QVC. I don't know if you knew this, but he worked for QVC. That was the first television job he got, and he got that job by talking about a pencil. They gave him a pencil and said, "Here, uh, just sell me this pencil." And 8 minutes later, Mike was still talking, and they hired him on the spot. So yeah, so we did the show called Crap. I produced that, and was the co-host or whatever, the Ed McMahon for that show, and just stuff like that. There are a lot of goofy stuff too. Created a lot of goofy content to just try to draw awareness. Get people to watch.
So, why would you be volunteering your time at this point in your career to this? Did you see there being a ton of value there? Was it something that you were planning or accounting for the future? Was it just something that you enjoyed doing?
Well, it was all part of the thing. I mean, it's all part of Mike Rowe's life. When I came to work for Mike Rowe, this is a big part of his life. This foundation. And like I say, there's only one employee who draws a check from the foundation. Everybody else volunteers their time. And when I say volunteers their time, it's like I'm working for Mike, but it's Mike's foundation. So I'm doing this stuff that benefits the foundation, but I'm being paid by the for-profit company. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
Um, Go ahead. Sorry.
oh, that's okay. So just basically, it isn't. I'm not paid by them, but I'm doing a lot of stuff for them.
Mm.
The reason that I did it is because it sort of helps the cause. It's all. I mean, I'm like I said, I grew up with the same sort of family background that Mike had, in the sense that there's blue collar family. Everybody was a tradesman. I'm the exception. Mike is the exception in his family too.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate that. I get everything he says. I understand that that we're profoundly disconnected from where our electricity comes from. We're profoundly disconnected with how the water gets through the pipes. We're profoundly disconnected from how the poo goes away. And all of these things make civilized life possible for all of us. And I'm a convert in the same way that he was, and he saw it firsthand doing dirty jobs.
Why do you think we're so disconnected?
I think part of it was intentional, and I believe Mike feels this way as well. That the reason being that in the '70s there was a huge push to get people to go to college. There was, people were not going to college like they I guess like they should have been, or they thought that we were gonna be a nation of not smart people. I have no idea, but they there was a full court press campaign in advertising to get people to go to college. You don't want to be the dumb guy who winds up fixing your toilet. It's like, really? Not to mention, not considering the fact that the guy who's fixing my toilet might be making a lot more than the teacher who
Mhm,
went to college, and by the way, doesn't have the crushing student loan debt as well.
mhm.
But in the '70s, that campaign was very successful, and and it caught on with teachers and counselors and parents who were like, not, my kid has got to go to college. You've got to go to college. You're never going to be anything in life if you don't go to college. That's what we were taught as kids
Mhm.
in the '70s and '80s. And it just was a lie. It just was a lie. And I think that's a big part of.
It's so interesting because I think today in, 2023, there's all of this talk about social media and how it's, corrupting people and that it's, convincing people to do certain things. As simple as like a social media trend, right?
Mhm.
You see a trend stick and all of a sudden everyone does it.
Right.
And it's like, but then you see and I forget that show on Netflix, but it talks about the whole Cambridge Analytica thing with, with swaying the election, and it's like they're using social media to guide people to
Uh,
make decisions and influence people.
mhm.
And what you just said is that in the '70s there was this campaign that said everyone had to go to college. And to think about that right now, in the fact that, 30, 40 years ago that there was this quote unquote campaign,
Mhm.
no social media, that we were able to shift the entire population to believe that, no, you have to go to college. And Tyler and I have talked about it a lot. I think we are on the other side of that, where we've realized that that's a massive mistake. And, and right now there's this, it's we haven't hit the like we certainly haven't hit the brakes on it, but I think a lot more people, especially in the last 5 years, maybe a little bit more than that, have really stopped and said, "Wait, why am I going to college?" It used like when I was in college, I think I feel as though a lot of people went just for the sake of going without any intent. It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, I know I have to go. Like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do, but that's what you do. It's like,
Yeah.
and now I think we're getting away from that. But how that relates to the trades is interesting because, the stat that you threw out earlier, for every five that retire, two replace, you know, and I would even argue that out of five that retire, two have the opportunity to replace, but then out of those two, like, do they actually stick around and choose that path?
Mhm.
And this is where like my mind goes in the sense that, yes, I fully agree that we need to continue to promote the trades as a good career option, but I also strongly believe that we will never be in a position that we have as many tradespeople as we once did. And we've talked about it in the sense of like innovation and technology, where, construction in general fails to innovate. you know there was a reference made a couple episodes ago about the farming industry.
Mm.
You think about, for the longest time, you'd be out there, you'd be picking the weeds out of your garden. Now they have a tractor that has no person in it, that has a laser beam on it that kills the weeds, and that's real.
Mm.
And where, you know, and I'm not saying, and at the same time, there's still people that need to be involved with the farm, but you can significantly reduce that number of people. And the argument oftentimes comes up is that, well, we don't want to replace, you know, like humans, then we're just, you know, robots will take over the world. It's like, well, you know, at there is this balance, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, like AI is becoming a huge thing right now, and there's this famous poster that went around where it's like, chat gpt finish this building, and it was this huge like campaign saying like, hey, like, we still need skilled trades in
Yes.
order to complete that building.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But if we were actually in like as innovative as some of the other industries, we probably could reduce the number of people on that job. and
Probably.
and and not entirely, but we could reduce the number of people if we were more supportive in that sense.
But but you know, Mike likes to say, you know, a robot is never going to install your toilet. That's just not going to happen. You need a person. You need a person to do that. Unless a 3D printer comes in and just goes zzz and puts a toilet where it's supposed to be. But I don't know how much
Why
I
don't
trust
you
that crapper.
why don't you think a robot could replace a toilet?
I because I don't believe it could. Do you? Do you think so?
Replace a toilet?
Yeah.
Like, my yeah.
Like walk up my stairs with a toilet, walk
I think
around
there's a lot of
furniture.
yeah, there's a lot of considerations. And like in a controlled environment, yeah, probably, but then like you think about all right, there's this address in the city on this floor of this building and you can only get in the freight elevator at these certain times. Like you still need a person to make all of that happen.
I I don't disagree with I don't disagree with that
Uh-huh.
right now. But
Right.
I look at, like, I always look at commercial construction in terms of what is going to translate into residential.
Mhm.
And it's like right now I'm watching commercial construction utilize robots in wall layout. I've been in business for myself for 10 years.
Mhm.
Prior to that, I was in high rise project management. And when I was, I was an assistant project manager. We were building a 32-story high rise. There was one guy that was in charge of doing all of the wall layout for the whole building. And he would stay 2 floors ahead of the guys installing light gauge metal framing.
Mhm.
And he would go in and he would read the plans and he would snap lines and he would spray everything with clear spray paint and color code it, name the wall, and then he'd move up to the next floor. That guy doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Now there's a robot that drives around and prints it on the floor. So I I don't think that right now a robot's going to walk up my stairs and replace a toilet. But I'd argue that in maybe 5 years, I have no idea, but in commercial, we're gonna see it. I think that, hey, this floor plate right here is a hotel. It's got 20 rooms in it. It knows exactly where all the bathrooms are, and there's just gonna be this little wheeled machine that walks over, drops the toilet in, and bolts it down and moves on to the next
What
one.
happens when the plumber set the flange at the wrong height?
The plumber's not gonna be setting the flange. It's
Who's
gonna
gonna
be
be doing the
manufactured.
floor tile? Like, what if the floor tile's not flat? I just feel like there's too much human interaction
I
with what we do. It's not like a
I don't think it
perfect
goes away.
situation.
No, no, I agree.
It's
I
like
don't think that we go away. I think that we will continue. This is it's the same argument about that I've had with Ken in our millwork shop about CNC work, where it's
Mm.
like, yes, we could cut plywood on the table saw. That's the romantic way to do it. Before that, it was
Right.
a handsaw, right?
Yeah.
But why not utilize a CNC to cut the plywood? Well, like, I like doing it on the table. It's like, well, if you thought this all the way through, what that can do is take out the monotonous work and allow the cabinet maker to do the more creative work. And arguably, it allows the work to be more creative because ultimately, if you look at it from a budget perspective, you have X amount of dollars to complete this job.
Mhm.
The less time a human, which Labor is expensive. It's just that's a fact. The less time a human can interact with the monotonous work, the more time and more of the budgeted amount of money you have can be attributed to the more creative stuff. And I think that is what we will see. Yeah, I'm not, I would like to think that you could probably have floor tile being installed, with a machine. Again, it's not a perfect scenario. I don't think a robot builds a building and we're not there. I think that at some point there's going to be a machine that lays out your thin set, and maybe there's a guy behind it that's setting tile. Now you
I'll bet a robot could set that tile more accurately so it's
yeah,
exactly, 5 millimeters apart or whatever.
yeah, and the you look at the 3D printing
Mhm.
homes with this concrete, it's like, you see the arguments, it's like, "Oh, all of these reasons why it's not great." It's like, sure, it's the first version of this. Yes, it's been around for a decade at this point,
Yeah.
but we're starting to see it in these communities. But if they can do it at that scale, all this does is open the opportunity for someone to look at that and be like, "All right, now how do I attribute that to the next thing?" How do I
Yeah.
take that gantry setup and instead of it printing concrete homes, it's grabbing CMU block and setting block automatically?
Well, I think this is really creative destruction. It's like when the automobile was invented, it was like, oh, this is ridiculous. It's going to put people out of work. It's the liveries, the stables, the horses, all that, the buggy whips, everything. But it actually employed more people over time. And
Mm.
I think the same thing is going to happen in this regard. And you're right, a robot someday may be able to do this. Right now, it's
No.
not happening. And there's different kinds of what you're really talking about is innovation. And you're saying, did I hear you say before that you don't think that the industry is innovating the way it should? Or
We had this conversation with a guest a couple episodes ago about the fact that I think it was Aaron Witt, right? Was it
Yeah.
Aaron? And we talked about the fact that the construction industry is lagging the most in terms of innovation.
And
Like
interesting.
and
we have
embracing technology.
right. We have innovated at the slowest pace out of all industries. And there was a relationship to farming and how farming, which seems even more primitive if when you think about it quickly, it has innovated far
Amazing.
fast,
I
far
I
fast.
I jotted down when you were talking about innovation before, Fairlife Farms. So we had the husband and wife who own Fairlife Farms on our podcast, the way I heard it with Mike Rowe, the thing that I do.
Mhm.
And they were talking about they have a fleet of trucks that deliver their milk all across the country that has over I think 6 million miles on these trucks that are entirely run with cow poo. Like it's fueled by the methane from cow crap, and like, that's innovative to me, and
Right.
Mike talks about this all the time. The farmers are the ones he said we shouldn't be talking about green. It's like green, green is the color of envy. It's like, it's about brown. It's about the earth, and
Mm,
people on farms are the most innovative people who waste nothing,
right.
absolutely nothing, everywhere you turn. Um, yeah, I didn't realize that the construction was behind the times in innovation. I think of an episode that Mike did of Dirty Jobs with rod busters. You know rod busters? What rod busting is? Just like building a bridge and placing all the rods
Oh,
that the
yeah. Yep.
concrete will go on top of, and they're all tied by hand. It's grueling Florida sun, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Well, they do have a machine that
Mhm.
can tie all those things, but I don't think it can set the rods. It
Not
can
yet,
not yet. That's
right?
right.
Right.
That's right. But that thing needs to be placed exactly right on the bridge and the wheels, and it's almost like you got to make a custom rig. There's so much to it. And
I think I think this is like you got Chuck and you and Mike talk about this too, is that it's not the pendulum doesn't have to swing. It needs to have equal respect for both sides. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is like from a career choice,
Mhm.
where I think Mike said it on our live is that it's not that we need more welders instead of lawyers. It's that we need to have respect if someone wants to be a lawyer or a welder in the same manner. I'm paraphrasing, and but the point
No,
is like,
you nailed it. I mean, that's the thought. Yeah,
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
not that we're trying like, "Hey, we don't need to go to college." Like, you don't, don't go to college, be a tradesperson. It's not that. It's no, if you want to be a tradesperson, there's respect as much as if you want to go to college.
And there are opportunities in both directions.
Right.
Mike says, I don't say don't go to college. College is a great thing if you can afford it. Don't
Mhm.
get $200,000 in debt, to learn something that nobody's hiring for. you know, you want
Right.
to follow opportunity, not your passion. That's another one of his favorite sayings.
What do you think the main purpose, like from a metric standpoint with the podcast, like what would make that successful for you guys other than just the amount of episodes that you have and everything else, but like what, as far as the industry goes, are you guys able to impact through the podcast that makes it feel successful to you?
Are you talking about influencing the construction industry or the skilled trade industry through the podcast, or just the
Yeah, so I
podcast?
guess like overall, what you guys are doing, right? And Nick and I get the same thing. It's a At times it seems as though it's an insurmountable climb. What's in front of us and the challenges that we face, but we continue to do it. So week in and week out, we hop on the podcast and we record a podcast. We go to work every day.
Mhm.
We stand up and demand respect for our industry, and not every day do I feel as though we're really making strides, but when I look at the big picture, I can see how much of an impact we're having. And I'm just curious with you guys, like what the metric is for doing what you're doing and spending the time on the podcast, and how you feel it's impacting and serving the industry as a whole.
Well, I would say that, we featured, we featured a rod buster on the podcast. We featured the husband and wife who own Fairlife Farms. We featured people in the industry, a lot of dirty jobbers and whatnot. Um, but the podcast is eclectic. The podcast, we also had Jay Leno on, or and Gary Sinise, and other people who are, who've written interesting books. But I would say that I definitely have seen a difference in my tenure. Remember, who was it that does the best colleges, the top colleges, every year, the top 100 colleges? Is it Forbes that makes that
Yeah,
list? I don't know.
Words makes a bunch of them.
Well, I mean, Mike wrote a post on Facebook years ago that said, "Why aren't the trades? What about the top trade schools? Why are they not
Mhm.
included?" And you know what? They made a list of those then. So that moves the bar a little bit. I definitely see it when you see articles. There was an article not long ago, and I forget where it was, forgive me, but talking about the fact that the perception of people are that this next generation is saying that college is not necessarily the way that I need to go in order to
Mhm.
to be successful. And that's all that Mike is saying. Mike is not saying, don't go to college. That's a waste of time. No, he's saying go to college if it benefits you, if it's going to benefit you and you can afford it,
Right.
but don't overlook the opportunity over here. Take a look around you and see what's needed. Is another college professor needed? Is someone who, insert obscure profession here, is that needed? Or do people still need to have their houses plumbed? Do they still need electricity running? It's like that's something that I just don't think is going to go away. Even if robots do it, then
Mhm.
there's got to be somebody guiding those robots. There's got to be somebody punching in the stuff to say, "Hey, do this, do that." You know.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's where, um the other opportunity that exists in the trades is on that more technical side where we made the relationship to all these kids playing video games, where it's like, there's a lot of opportunity in the trade specifically that directly relate to computer modeling,
Yeah.
where it's like the more we think about offsite construction and panelization and prefabrication, it's and even running the CNC for the cabinet shop,
Sure.
it takes someone to be able to model that cabinet part
Mhm.
in order for that CNC to be efficient.
Yep.
And that doesn't need to be a cabinet maker. That doesn't need to be someone that wants to that needs to understand how plywood works, or it's someone that needs to understand how to run a program.
Right.
I think that and that's where I think opportunity lies outside the normal, consideration for what it means to be in the trades, where it's like it doesn't necessarily mean you're out in the field. Like, yes, those are opportunities as well, but we're talking specifically about the building industry, but the building industry is very wide, like very wide. There's opportunities in everything, including finance.
Mhm.
There in sales, like all of that exists within our industry.
Yeah, and the thing that Mike tried to do with this foundation is still trying to do is and I feel like we're moving the needle. I definitely
Mhm.
feel like things are changing. The perception is changing. But what he tried to do was to say to combat the idea that, hey, you got to go to college. You got to
Yeah.
go to college. It's not don't go to college. It's that yeah, you could go to college, but you also could do this. So just consider all your options before you decide because like when he likes to say all the time that when we were 17, 18 years old, graduating high school, we didn't know what we wanted to do for the rest of our lives and we went to Essex Community College and took courses for $28 a credit, and for $28 a credit, you could not know what you wanted to do.
Right.
You could do that
But
for a little bit.
28,000,
Yeah,
yeah.
then it's a different tune. You better be sure.
You said something earlier too, like, that I want to touch on is growing up, your family was, talked about respecting everyone and especially the trades. And I think about that today, and, I I continue to think that we're making improvement each and every day. But the interesting thing is to use social media and media in general, like thinking about magazines, and when like for a project, right? A project gets featured.
Mhm.
It gets posted in a magazine, or it wins an award. It's the architect, it's the interior designer, it's the photographer. And oftentimes the builder and for, forget all of the trades, but just the builder's not mentioned.
Right.
And and this has been something that, I think that especially with social media, we've seen kind of a change where, when we post a project and there's plumbing in it,
Mhm.
I'm calling out plumbing done by Darb Mechanical,
That's great.
and it's like, hey, plaster hood done by Trowel Inc. Because those guys put their sweat into this,
Yeah.
and we want to promote them as craftspeople. And, because God forbid I posted a project and I forgot to tag who photographed it, I
Yeah.
get a message within 15 minutes like, "Excuse me, that's my photo."
That's right.
It's like, "Excuse me, I paid you $5,000 for that photo. Like, I forgot to tag you. I'm sorry." But this is like it gets down to, I think, that the level being granular with it, where it's like the respect needs to be, delivered to everyone. And
Yeah.
I think that, that campaign that we talked about a couple minutes ago, that's where that disconnect started.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, this, it's a beautiful home, but who built it? No, I don't know.
And those
Or I even
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say the only, like to add to that. Recently, there's like these awards locally, and it's a general award. It's like a, 40 under 40 or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's supposed to be for the building industry, and I had called them out one time. I was like, there's no builders in your group. It's architects and interior designers and
Right.
landscape architects, and totally fine. But
Mhm.
you're saying it's for the industry.
Yeah.
It's like, what about all the trades? Like,
Yeah.
what about that guy over there is under 40 years old and he's killing it.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was going to say before when you were mentioning, the campaigns, and how successful it was, those campaigns were very successful. This is a time when there were only three channels. There was no
Mhm.
YouTube, there was no internet. The shows that the sitcoms that people watched got 20 million people watching because there were only three or four choices to choose from. And those commercials that would run, the one is that really changed the way America looked, was the litter campaign. And you guys are probably not old enough to remember, but they had this Italian actor, actually in real life, who was playing an Indian, a Native American, standing on the side of the road dressed as a Native American, and a car drives by and somebody throws a cup out the window and it lands on the
Mm.
ground, and he looks at it and looks back at the car, and this little tear goes down his cheek. That was the whole thing. And then it was like, don't litter. But that campaign was so successful because before that, when people went on a picnic, they just left all their trash there, the chicken bones and the Coke cans and their
Mm.
plates, their paper not in a trash can. I don't even think they put trash cans in parks.
Yeah.
It was just, you just left it wherever you left it, and it was horrible. But and now it's much better. But that campaign really, really changed the way we think about, oh yeah, this I don't want to just throw this on the ground. I got to put this in a proper place.
1971 was
Is
that
that when that
commercial.
was?
Yeah.
So, who was pushing the campaign to go to college? Was it the government? Like, where was all this push and legislation coming from?
Yeah, my understanding was it was the government thought that they wanted us to be smart. We were in the Cold War.
Yeah.
We need to beat the Soviets, and so um, we need smart people. We want to make sure that they're not kicking our ass when it comes to intelligence. So yeah, that was pretty much it. But everybody got on board because it made sense. It was like, oh yeah, if you go to college and you get a degree, you're going to make more money. That's just a given. But now college, you can take a course on whether or not or what makes Seinfeld funny. It's like, while that might be very interesting, I mean, that sounds like a very interesting thing to get into. It is not going to lead to a six-figure income, you know,
Mhm.
if any income at all.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just interesting to me also that there was. I understand people like people must have wanted a change, even if something's jammed down your throat enough. Nobody's going to adopt that unless they want a change or they're convinced that this change is necessary. And then it took 50 years for us to really start experiencing a lot of the backlash from that, where it's like now people are going to college and absorbing all of this debt and not being able to come out with a lucrative enough career to be able to offset the costs of life. Even now it's like you make six figures and you're still broke. um and that there hasn't been kickback until now, and there hasn't been people wanting to get back into the trades or not absorb that cost of college education until now. It just seems like it took a very long time. I mean, I graduated from high school in 2004, and it was still the same thing. Like, you get done high school and you go to college.
Right.
There's really no other options coming up in a middle class white suburban neighborhood. Like, that's
Mm,
just what you did. And I still at 18, 19, 21 years old didn't know what I wanted to do, but it was just like, well, you'll figure that out, but at least you'll have that degree. And it's just taken that long for people to realize that this isn't the only option out there, that there's other options available, and that you don't necessarily have to know what you want to do or even have to go to college in the first place. And being able to support that thought, the same thing that what we're doing, that what you guys stand for, and everything that you're putting out there, it's nice to see that, and somebody else kind of standing up and speaking to that, to support these young kids who are coming up and not having money to afford an education, or not wanting to go to college because they're unsure of what they want to do, to be able to have a path into the trades and a path to a successful career, I think is critical and definitely necessary these days.
Yeah, and listen, this is not to say that it doesn't cost money to learn a skilled trade because it does. You know, some of the trade schools can cost quite a bit of money, but they're not for 4
Mhm.
years. You know, and that was why we started the work ethic scholarship program. And I think in total, I wish I I should have jotted all the numbers down before getting on, but I think it's about 6 or 7 million dollars in total that we've given away. I know that for the past 2 years, we've given away $1 million uh, per year. Right now, we had a work ethic scholarship program in March where we're giving away $1 million. It'll probably be to like somewhere between 150 and 250 kids. I say kids, but some of them, you know, like I say, we don't discriminate by age. You
Mhm.
know, you could be 55 and apply. Um, but we're also going to have another work ethic scholarship program in August. I don't have a date when it'll start, but it'll be sometime in August. And we're going to give away, for the first time ever, we're going to give away another $1 million. So this year we will give away $2 million to help people learn a skilled trade. So if you are if you are interested in learning a skilled trade, check out microworks.org and go to the scholarship page, and keep an eye on us on this on social media and find out when exactly it'll start and apply. It's it's worth it. We have I think we have over 1,500 people have gotten scholarships, and it's helped them tremendously.
And how are you guys raising the money through that? Is that through partnerships or through individual sponsors or both?
It's sponsors, mostly people, companies will donate money, organizations will donate money, but it's also, it's also the weird stuff, like we'll sell a T-shirt,
Mhm.
we'll sell some of Mike's crap. I mean, he's auctioned off some of the weirdest things.
Didn't he sell his bathrobe?
That was Trump's bathrobe. That was during the 2016 election. Mike reached out to Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Donald Trump because those were the only three left,
Yeah.
who could potentially, be president. And he reached out to all three and said, he asked Bernie for a crumpled suit jacket. He asked for Hillary for a pantsuit, and he asked Donald Trump for a bathrobe from one of his properties. And like that, Donald Trump responded, and one of his representatives. We were shooting a show in Baltimore at the time, and what was her name? Dana Gertz, I believe, came out and hand delivered it. And yeah, we got $15,000 for it. And then the person who bought that in 2020 said, "Hey, I'm sending the bathrobe back to you to auction again." And we auctioned it again, and she bought it for $45,000 the second time.
Oh my
The
gosh.
True
government's
story.
probably making money on the taxes selling that too. They're like, "Keep selling it back and forth." Donald Trump's like, "Alright."
Wow, yeah, I like the way you think, man. It's a little scary, but I like it.
So, what if somebody wanted to apply for this scholarship? Like,
Mhm.
how would they, other than going on your website, like, what are the credentials that you need to have? Just somewhat of a synopsis of who's eligible for this.
Okay. So all you can only be going to an accredited, um, skilled trade school, which is, like a 2-year college, or a specific trade school, like a cabinet maker school or something, but only ones that are accredited. That's the only criterion for where you can use this. And when you apply, there are a bunch of hoops to jump through. You'll have to be familiar with the sweat pledge. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, which stands for uh, skills and work ethic aren't taboo. And basically, it's 10 tenets of life. We sell these posters all the time, and parents like put it up in their kids' room. Number one is, I believe I have hit the greatest lottery of all time. I'm alive. I walk the earth. I was born in America. Above all things, I am grateful. That's number one. Um, There are others that, I believe the worst sound to hear is the sound of complaining, and I will not make that sound. If I am not unhappy in in my job, I will find a way to be happy or find a new job. I deplore debt. I would rather sleep in a tent and eat beans than borrow money to pay for a lifestyle I can't afford. Stuff like that. It's just like 10 rules to live by. And so everybody's got to read this. They've got to sign the pledge. They have to say, I agree with these things. And Mike gets pushed back every year. Somebody says, well, why does my son or daughter have to sign that? And Mike will say, your son or daughter does not have to sign it. Maybe this particular pile of free money is just not for them.
I like
So
that.
so they have to sign it. They have to be familiar with it because we ask a series of questions about it that they need to answer, things that are related to the sweat pledge. You'll need to make a video. You'll need to get references, and the references are the most important thing. It has to be somebody who is in a superior position, a boss, a teacher, somebody who has overseen you do something. And they have to fill out a thing for you, and that weighs a lot because it's really what people say about you that determines, and the applicant doesn't get to see what the person says. So it's all, like it's all done through a website. So they say, hey, Tyler, uh, I want you to, be my reference. And then Tyler gets the email, and then Tyler signs on, and Tyler says exactly what he thinks about the person. And we gauge that. Um, Let me see. Am I forgetting anything else that,
How are you guys like choosing the recipients? Like, how does that happen?
well,
Is
we combine there's everybody in our office. We help with reviewing the applications, and there's a rubric that we have set that determines, X amount of points between this range and this range for the essay,
Mhm.
for the video, for the reference, et cetera, et cetera. And we also have we work with our partners who have donated money to the cause, and people from, Wolverine or Coke or whoever our sponsors happen to be, they will also review. So what we try to do is have everybody review, one person internally and person externally review the application. We combine the two, and that's what's done. And if those two scores are too disparate, if they're like 15 points apart, then a third person will review, and then we'll take the aggregate, or the average of the three.
Mm.
do you guys spread the word for this scholarship through like public schooling or anything like that? Like, is this something that a guidance counselor would offer to students who weren't looking to go to college, or is it completely separate from that?
It depends on the guidance counselor. We have no affiliation with
Yeah.
the public school system or anything like that, but it's really kind of more than anything a word of mouth type situation. Mike has a huge presence on Facebook. That's a place. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. We try to get the word out, and try to have people share that stuff with and there's nothing better than, like, you'll see when we post we're a new round of scholarships. It's like you'll see mothers and fathers who are like tagging their sons and daughters to say, hey, check this out, because really the parents were sort of in the camp of, you got to go to school, you got to go to
Mm.
college, you got
Yeah.
to get a degree, or else we're all going to die. It's just, and now we're starting to see a change in that regard.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, with respect to my question, like if,
Mm,
being 20 years removed from high school, if this is nothing that a guidance counselor would have offered us, like this, any
No.
scholarship that they pushed across your desk, whether it was from a teacher, a guidance counselor, an athletic coach, was always with regard to furthering your education in
mhm,
academia. And I would be curious, like, what if there would be pushback, or this is something that public schooling guidance counselors would be more apt to promote at this point, being that maybe we're not pushing college as the only option nowadays.
Well, I can tell you that there have been plenty of people who, teachers and counselors who have written us to say, "Hey, thank you. You've opened my eyes to this opportunity thing, and I no longer am one of the people who is saying you got to go to college or everybody's going to die." You
Mm,
know? So, I mean, that's only anecdotal, but the whole point of Mike starting the Microworks Foundation was to raise awareness of the need for more skilled trade workers. The skills gap is what, it used to be called. You don't hear that term as much anymore, but basically there's all these jobs that could be filled if people had the skills to do them, and so the idea was to let people know, hey, there are all these jobs available that are, these are in demand jobs right this minute. If you have the skills to fill this, you can work right away. And that's another thing that I see anecdotally with the people who are getting scholarships that I follow up with, and say, "Hey, tell me your story. So, how did you come to work here?" And it's like, "Well, I was recruited before I ever
mm,
left. I went to UTI. I learned how to work on cars. BMW came a calling and said, "Hey, we'll send you to a school for free, specifically to learn our trade. All you got to do, our makes and models, and all you got to do is say that you'll work for us for a year or 2 years or whatever."
mhm.
And most of the people that I talked to, you know, they had jobs before they ever even got. They were working for the company they were learning the skill to work for before they were even finished and got their
I
certificate or degree.
and I think that's where we're at in this whole process where, you know, 5 years ago 5, 10 years ago, it was we need to create we need to make the trades cool again. We need to create awareness. We need to drive awareness. Find home building, have the keep craft alive. Like all of these campaigns were launched to create the awareness of, hey, this is an opportunity.
Yep.
But the issue was that we were also stripping the school and the ability to learn this.
Shop
Where it's
class
like I
goes
look
away. Yeah.
shop class goes away. I look at my vocational school that I went to in high school. Not only was I discouraged for going there when I in middle school, my guidance counselor told me that it was where the bad kids went. So I was like part of that. But furthermore, we just hired a kid that went to that school. He was in the carpentry program, and his teacher reached out and said, "Hey, I have a student that wants to do co-op. Would you be interested?" I said, "How hell yeah, like absolutely." And the teacher came to our job site to interview us, go through the whole process, and I'm chatting with him, and I'm like, is this shop still there?" And he's like, "No, we combined that one with this shop," and it was like automotive and auto body. I'm like, those are different. He's like, "Yeah, but they combine that, and then they combine welding and machine shop," and I'm like, those are different.
Yeah.
Like, why? And he goes, "Yeah, well, they end up putting in criminal justice and environmental something." I'm like, "What?" And I started, going down a rabbit hole and realizing that that's what we've done. So now we're in this massive race where everyone's trying to be the center of education. Thinking about, like, you look at like something like Masterclass, where it's like these digital platforms to learn. You know, it's who's going to be the new hub of information. And of course, Tyler is promoting and educating through social media. We're doing the same thing. There's all these people, doing it very informally, but the reality is the amount of applicants that Tyler probably sees and we see are people that, hey, I don't know how to learn this, but I want to do this. And it's like there's no opportunity for me to learn it. And even some of the schools that do teach it, like you had alluded to earlier, they're not long length schools. It's usually a fast track program that's
Mhm.
going to introduce you to all things building. So you're going to go in for like 9 to 12 months, and you're going to be introduced to everything. So you're going to go from knowing 0 to knowing,
A
you
little
know,
bit about
10
everything.
10%.
Right.
And then from there you're thrown into the work world, and hopefully you land with someone that not only has the want to educate you, but also the capacity. And the reality is the capacity is almost non-existent, because it's like, I need you so bad as an employee because we are so busy that you're just going to come in and you're just going to learn by, osmosis. Is that the right word? Learn by,
Yeah,
Yes.
osmosis.
that's the right word. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the reality is a lot of people aren't built for that. A
Yeah.
lot of people need more structure. It's like, okay, am I a apprentice? Am I a laborer? When am I a carpenter? And and even internally, that's something that we've been battling with for years now. It's like, how do we build a program to allow someone to look at, on a piece of paper, because that's what people want to see, is here, this is where I am, this is how much money I make, and if I want to make more money or be higher up in my career, here's the path to do that. Because then the flip side of that is, if you don't have that, they leave
Mm,
for another opportunity.
mhm.
So there's no, we can't sustain these people, because not only are we not educating them when they come in, but then we're not giving them the clear direction as to, here's your career path based on where you want to end up. And that and it's just, yeah, that's my thought on that. Is just that we've done such a good job, you know, getting people interested in being in this industry or these industries, but we have somehow stripped the opportunity to educate them.
S-
Hmm.
I have a question for you, Chuck, regarding what you do for a career. You obviously started your career. Did you want to be an actor? Did you know that someday you wanted to go into the other side of the industry as far as directing, producing, writing? Like, what was your dream when you were 18, 19 years old?
Well, believe it or not, when I was 18, I wasn't sure. I mean, I knew I liked acting. I had acted in all the school plays. I was working when I was 18, I was working in a community theater, in a dinner theater, the kind of thing where you show up before the show starts and you put an apron on and you walk out and you deliver drinks to tables and then you say, "Okay, everybody, anybody need one more drink before I go backstage and put my makeup on to do the show?" And then you do the first act and then you put your apron on and come out and say, "Okay, I hope you how did you enjoy the first act? Can I get you another gin and tonic?" uh, so I was doing that, but I didn't think I would try to do it professionally, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I was making money, but not much. I was making more money waiting tables, than what they were paying me to do the show. So, but yeah, I went to New York when I was 19 and went to a 2-year program at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And when I got out of there, I thought, yeah, I'm going to be my goal is to be a working actor, where I wouldn't have to wait tables or do anything else. I would earn my money from acting. And I was very lucky to begin with. My first audition was a Broadway show. I got it. I did it for about a year. I went to Norway. I went to Israel, and I was on Broadway for about a year. Then I came out to LA and I did I did a movie my very first year. I starred in a movie called The Unnameable. I was on Days of Our Lives for about 6 months. And everything seemed good. And then it was like, then I got a little older and it started going down. But what sort of happened is that I started getting more voiceovers just for commercials and stuff like that. And so I like to say I rode the horse in the direction it was running.
Yeah.
I was making more money doing voiceover than I was acting, so I did more voiceover. And still acted, still did movies. So I produced a play, I produced a movie, and just but always stayed in entertainment. Honestly, I never thought that I would be where I am today, but in terms of being a producer and I still act. I mean, Mike and I did a show. I don't know if you saw it in 2021 for Discovery called 6 Degrees, where you take two disparate things and connect them through 6 degrees. How a horseshoe can find your soulmate, how a garbage man can gave us a picture of the Big Bang, how a mousetrap can cure your hangover. These are weird, true you know,
Who developed that show?
treks through time. We did, Mike. I mean, it was, I mean, it sort of developed over time, but it's ours.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we spitballed it together and shot it during COVID, and yeah, it was only on for one season, but at some point it may come back again because it was a real fun show.
Do you
You can see it on Discovery Plus or Discovery, any of the Discovery Demand things.
do you feel that the entertainment industry lends itself to a clear career path? And I guess what I'm getting at
No.
is yeah, and like and I guess what I feel is that it's in a lot of ways there's probably a ton of parallels to what you went to school for, what you do, and how you ended up doing what you're doing now
Mhm.
as the construction industry and as the trade industry. And I would assume that there's probably a lot of the same struggles with your industry and your profession as what we're facing, even with, are you going to pay to go to school to become an actor? Is it necessary? Is there work out there? Is there a defined career path that you're going to be working, like you said, waiting tables and acting, and then you're going to
Mhm.
do plays, and like, it just doesn't seem like there's a definitive path where it's like you're going to start here and you're going to end here. And I would assume that it probably lends itself to a lot of the same challenges that we experience in our trade.
100%. And one other thing I wanna say about the entertainment industry is that the entertainment industry is also part of the problem that created this idea that the trades are consolation prizes. Think about, if I say to you, "Okay, you're watching a TV show and a plumber is gonna walk on screen any minute. What does that plumber look like?"
Yeah.
Well, he's gonna be overweight, and when he squats down, you're gonna see his butt cleavage, right?
Butt
That that
cleavage.
that is
I've never heard
You've
that
never
term
heard that.
together.
Okay, well,
Butt
you're
cleavage.
welcome. Butt cleavage, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
or plumber's cleavage, is another way to say it. But, uh, but, we the entertainment industry made skilled trade workers look bad, you know? It was the architects who got the girls, not the bricklayer. The bricklayer was a dumb guy who was, who was usually a comical character. The plumber was a comical character. So they contributed to this whole zeitgeist of degrading the trades, I believe, but in answer to your question, no, there's no career path. It's a hopscotch here and a hopscotch there. And very few people are lucky enough to ride that train the whole time and be the working actor the whole time, so.
Is there I'm sure that there are, but are there people doing something similar to the work that you're doing with Mike in the entertainment industry to try and make it more of a viable career path for people where it's not like it just seems like the disparity between the people who are successful and not successful is so polarizing.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody's doing that, and, but it's a very haphazard, business, I think.
I mean,
It really
it's a
is, and
trade. It's very similar to what we do. Like you go to school and you train and there's a trade
mhm,
and there's a skill set and you
yeah,
practice and you work really hard to get yourself, and it just seems that like you either happen across being successful or you
mhm.
don't, and it doesn't seem like it's like, well, if you do this, this, and this, and you work really hard, then you're going to be successful. And I think that that's very similar to what we do, and I think that it's a huge barrier to entry for the construction industry, right? There's an allure to the entertainment industry where it's like you look up to certain people who in your mind have made it, and it's
Mhm.
like, who are you looking up to on our end? So what's incentivizing people to get into our trade if there's really no career path? Your trajectory is limited, and you're not going. Not everyone wants to be, like you said, a working actor your whole life, like to just work as a laborer your whole life. Like there's no way up. And I'd be curious if there were takeaways from what you're doing with Mike that were applicable to your craft, so to speak, and what you grew up doing.
To a degree, I mean, the idea I've had the opportunity to create something, a couple of things with Mike, one of which was the podcast, one of which was 6 Degrees, the crap show, like, w I'm using skills that I used before, and I don't know. I mean, I see what you're asking, and, I would say, yeah, that I feel like I've had opportunities I use the skills that I learned to be an actor, um, daily. I use them daily, in the position that I'm doing now, but I don't think of it as like, "Well, I'm gonna get these, skills, and then I'm gonna go do this thing." It's like I'm always thinking about what's right in front of me at the moment, you know? I mean, one of the great things about being a laborer, or being a bricklayer or a carpenter or a plumber is that at some point you can write your name on a shingle and hang it up and go into business for yourself. That's a lot harder to do as an actor, I think.
Mm.
It can be done, but it's not like, it's like, okay, here's my shingle, call me up and I'll do some acting for you. No, you got to produce a play or produce a movie or something like that, which, people do, but it's a very difficult endeavor. But that's one of the great things about the skilled trades is there's an opportunity for people to not only find a successful career long term, a trade that will follow them wherever they go. You don't have to be in a certain location. They need running water in Milwaukee as much as they do in St. Petersburg. Um, and you have the opportunity to be entrepreneurial in starting your own business. That I think is really, really positive, and I've met so many people whose that's their goal. It's like, I want to do this. I'm going to work for this company for this amount of time. My 5-year plan is that by the time year 6, I'm going to have my own business. I
Yeah,
see that a
it
lot.
I know, and I guess that's good and bad, right? And I think of it with respect to what you do as well, and it's like, so and Nick and I have had this conversation where you become a carpenter because you really love carpentry. You fell in love with
Right.
carpentry, and then you
Yeah.
become successful, and now like the next step is to start a business or to manage other carpenters. And
Mhm.
maybe that's not your strong suit, but that's just the position that you fell into because you were a good carpenter. Or now you have to start your business in order to take it to the next step. And it's like, well, that's not what I love. And I would find I would imagine that that's very similar where it's like, all right, so you become an actor and this is what you love and this is what you fell in love with, and then you get a little bit older and then the same opportunities aren't falling on your lap. So then you figure out what you can do next. And sometimes that door opens up to great opportunities that align with everything that you've done your entire life. And sometimes you have to go down a different path. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it just seems that like I feel in order to attract more people into what we're doing, we have to provide them with a more clearly defined path within their career, and that's probably very similar to you.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of the challenges that we face, like I'm sure when you were going to acting school, you did not think, you know what, I'm doing all this so that I can produce a podcast 20, 30 years from now, right?
They didn't even
I
exist,
know, but it's like it's
nor did
crazy
the
that that's what you're
internet.
doing now.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, it's super cool that you're able to do that, and that's the position that you find yourself in now, coming from the background that you are, and obviously, it's still within the realm of entertainment.
Sure.
Um, but I mean, it's the same thing for Nick and myself. Like, I started doing construction because I like carpentry because I didn't want to go work a desk job, and now I have a construction related podcast that we've been doing for 5 years, and it doesn't. They don't seem to correlate. Like, there's not a straight line from being 21 and graduated from college and then doing what we're doing now. But what do you feel specifically your experience lends itself to within the podcast realm? Like, what do you use on a daily basis from your life and work experience that makes your podcast successful?
My sense of humor, my voice, I was a trained actor. I wouldn't say that I'm acting on the podcast. I in fact, I have to try not to act because my instinct is to act. But I think it's the idea of like knowing what's funny, what's not funny, what's interesting, what's not interesting. These are things that I learned along the way, and I definitely believe that everything I've ever done, I think this is true of everybody. Everything I've ever done that's led me to this moment, has helped shape this moment,
Yeah.
and what I'm doing. It all plays a part. The job, tossing papers when I was 11, working at the movies when I was 17. All these things really they all add up to make us who we are. And I want to say one thing. You said something in what you just said about the about you love to act, or so you love carpentry, and so you're going to go do that or whatever. You do the thing that you love. One of the things that Mike said that I think is really smart, is that he says don't follow your passion, but always bring it with you. And he talks about the idea of like look for opportunity. What needs doing? Where could your skills or what skills are needed that you could do? Find a job, not a job, but find a thing to do. Find a skill that you can do, be the best at it, and then learn to love it. I think that's part of any job, when you're, particularly if you're doing a job that you don't think you like. You're like, I don't really want to do this, but I find, this is all I can get right now. I'm doing this. It's like, if you find a way to love the crappy job that you don't want to do, you're going to be great. And every employer is going to want you on their team. No doubt about it, because
But wh
you're going to
but
keep,
why not follow your passion? Like, what's the
because,
idea behind that thought?
well, the idea comes from the show, what's it called? America's Got Talent, or
Mhm.
what's the other one? I think it's even more famous. Where the American Idol, American Idol.
Yeah,
That's
Mm.
the one
yeah.
I'm trying to think of. So there are people who love to sing. Right? They love to sing, and their dream is to be a star. And they get on stage, and that's the first time in front of the judges, and that's the first time in their life that anybody has said to them, "Hey, you're not good. This is not gonna happen for you." Like,
Mhm.
and, even as an audience, if you've ever seen the show, there are times where people get up there and they sing and you go, "Oh, no, you are not. This is not your thing."
I did that at my kid's talent show, I'm not gonna lie. It's like there's parents sitting there and, I mean, they're only in, like, 3rd to 7th grade or 6th
Yeah.
grade, but I'm like, I don't think I'd let my daughter get up and sing "It's a Small World" like that if she was that bad. Like, I wouldn't. I'd
Mhm.
be like, "Yo, maybe try something else, maybe like a comedy routine, but I'm not gonna let you sing in front of everyone like that."
Listen, there's nothing wrong with letting her sing like that. You just don't wanna tell her that it's great. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
So there are people whose passion is to, I'm gonna be a singer, I'm gonna be a famous musician. It's like, you know what? You're not. I
Mhm.
can tell you right now, and I'm no genius, but I know you're not. So that's
It
it.
makes sense, and I do think that it's a valid point to, no matter what situation you're in, um, it's about perspective and shifting
Mhm.
your perspective, and you can find ways to find fulfillment in a job that you don't necessarily find the job itself fulfilling. And what comes to mind, Nick, is Spencer Lewis, right? It's a
Yeah.
He's a production trim carpenter that we've had on the podcast a few times,
Mhm.
and no matter what you're working with, at the end of the day, he's by himself day in and day out, hanging doors, running baseboard, running casing. Sure, sometimes the profiles are different. It's a different location, But after doing that by yourself for 10 years, 20 years, it becomes very mundane. You're going through the motions. And
Mhm.
what is not as satisfying to him with regard to the work or purchasing new tools is developing systems and efficiencies within his workflow. So now he gains fulfillment through being fast and efficient and developing new processes, and that's where he really feels successful. It's not necessarily about like, hey, I know how to execute a tight miter or run this crown molding in a way. It's like, hey, I developed this system for
Mhm.
pre-assembling all of these door casings and being able to do the entire house in 2 days. And he's really just shifted his perspective to something that wasn't as gratifying for him after a certain amount of time to now focusing on something else that really can bring him that fulfillment that he needs.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Well,
it just comes down to a little bit of a shift in focus and a shift in perspective.
yeah, and that's important because nobody wants to do a job they hate, you know?
Mhm.
And every job, there's something about every job to love, even the really crappy ones.
Yeah, and I think that, for everything that you guys have done and Mike's done with Dirty Jobs and, Micro Works and the foundation, I think that that's exactly what this is all about
Mhm.
is, bringing, the attention to that and having other opportunities, equal opportunities, equally respected opportunities for, whether it is the trades or whether it is something that requires a college education.
Mhm. Yeah.
Chuck, appreciate you being on, man.
My
I
pleasure,
know
man. Thanks, Nick.
I know that I know they need to get back to working on that infamous shower. So they're probably sitting out there wondering why their 2-hour lunch is 2 hours,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, actually, they started they came back. They got tired of waiting, I think, so they came
oh,
back,
good.
yeah, so I think we're okay. But yeah.
Um, no, I really appreciate you being on, and I know a lot of people will appreciate this conversation. And just, lastly, you said it's microworks.org, for people.
Microworks.org, that's correct, and you can go to microworks.org/scholarship and, see what's going on with the scholarship, but nothing is happening right now, until sometime in August where we'll have round 2 for this
Cool.
year and people can apply, and it'll be open for about a month. If you follow us on, Microworks on Facebook, if you follow Mike Rowe on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, you'll be able to see. Will announce it as soon as we have a specific date.
Nick,
Awesome, man.
you can auction off some of your skinny jeans.
There you go.
Ooh, can I do that? Or do I have to do it on my own? I was just thinking that they would auction it for me, but that is not gonna happen. I will auction my own. If anyone wants to buy my skinny jeans, let me know. Chuck,
We
appreciate
appreciate
it, man.
your time, Chuck.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Keep up the good
We'll chat
work.
Thank you.
we'll chat soon. Chuck's cool. It's funny, like, if you didn't know he was a voiceover guy, I feel like you would you would know. I let me rephrase it. If he didn't tell you he was a voiceover guy, I feel like you could assume that. He's just very clear.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to dig into that because I feel like sometimes I mumble. I know I mumble and I trip over my words constantly. I'm like, "Man, he's just, like, so smooth." Like, he could read a book to me and I would just sit there and listen.
It's so I listened to a couple of their podcasts and I it's completely different to have a conversation with somebody when you see them versus just
Mhm.
hearing their voice. Like
Yeah.
having a conversation with him, his voice fits him. It's very there's just so many other um like sensory items or
Yeah.
like it's just this encompassing sensory experience, right? Where you're seeing him, you're hearing him, you're watching what's going on, you're thinking about. But if you just listen to him have a conversation with somebody else, him and Mike Rowe, who have very distinct voices, it's a completely different experience than just having a conversation with someone.
I think it's like reading a book and watching the movie too, where when you're listening to someone you don't know what they look like,
Yeah.
you spend a lot of time envisioning what they look
Yep.
like. And then it's like when you read the book, like you paint the picture and then you watch the movie, it's like, whoa, that's not what I painted.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same reason why I enjoy listening to baseball games. I just think
Mm.
it's a really it's a very different experience, and I think that it's a good outlet for experiencing the game in that way, and like the delivery of it, the cadence of it, the wording that
It's
they use, and like the way that they describe it, right? Because you're not watching it, and they'll be like they're wearing this socks as he grips the bat and shuffles his feet in the box, and it's just like it lends itself very well to baseball, which
mm.
not as much recently since they've adopted the pitch clock, but before there could be like a lot of radio silence, and they just do a really good job creating a narrative for the game that is
Eh,
very interesting. But I feel like if you were in the box with them watching the game, you wouldn't hear it the same way. Like
I
it wouldn't be as palpable, and it wouldn't be the same sensory experience.
I feel like it's probably more adrenaline listening to it because, you hear the crack of the bat
Yeah.
and then he's running. It's like you're not watching him get to the plate. It's like you're sitting there or you're basically waiting to hear whether or not he made it there.
Yeah, it's I've always enjoyed it.
Mm.
It started when I decided I didn't want to pay for cable TV anymore. I made the
Love
switch,
that.
right?
I love that.
Well, it was I was paying like for cable. It was when the kids were young.
Yeah.
But we were paying for cable, and it essentially was to watch
Mhm.
a Phillies games.
Yeah.
And we only have one TV in our house, and if I'm in that room and the kids are in there, they don't wanna watch the Phillies game. How many
Mhm.
days am I getting home and at 7 o'clock when most games come on, I'm able to just sit on the couch and watch TV? Like,
Mm.
never. So everything was working against me. The older the kids get, only one TV in the house. If we're in there, they don't care. They don't wanna watch what we're watching. So
Mhm.
I was like, I'm paying if it's 150 bucks, $100 a month, you're at 1,200, $1,500 a year for cable to watch Phillies games that I'm not watching. I'm like, I could go get tickets behind home plate for a half dozen games a year and
Right.
not pay this much to not watch TV. I don't do that either. But I started listening at that point, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And I don't necessarily need to watch games.
It's funny, thinking about cable, and I remember growing up, they would bundle like, even when I had my first house, they would bundle, like, TV and cable, and then they'd throw in the phone. It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's cheaper if
Triple
you get the
play.
phone line." Yeah. Now it's like people are just getting internet, and they're like, "We'll throw in the cable,"
Yeah. I mean, it
which is
definitely has changed, and all the kids watch everything now. It's basically all
all
internet.
streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I
so
was trying to explain to my kid the other day, like, they were like, "Oh, can we watch so and so?" I'm like, "It's not on right now." They're like, "What do you mean it's not on right now?"
or like the
It's like, "It's."
radio, dude, like, you used to have to listen to the radio for songs to come on and then try
Yeah.
and record them. And
Yeah.
it's like, my kids don't understand, like, we get in my work truck, and it doesn't have, like, Apple CarPlay or anything, it's
Mhm.
just a radio, and they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
can you play this Christmas Carol?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "I don't have the ability to do that." I was like, this is what it was like for our entire life, like, you couldn't just
But they
pick what
still don't
song you
understand. They're
wanted."
like, "Press a different
I
button."
know.
I w Indy's obviously only 2.5, but every time we get in my truck, she wants to put on the Frozen soundtrack, and I
Love
keep
it.
telling her, I'm like, "No, it's only on in the morning when I drop you off for day." She's like, "No, let it go, let it go, let it go."
Yeah,
Like, "It's not on
dude,
right now."
even growing up, like, we didn't have a TV remote. It was the box that was, like, up near the TV, so
Mhm.
you wouldn't change I remember when remotes came out, and a couple of my friends' dads would watch TV, and they would constantly switch, like, when a commercial came on, they would switch, and I was like, "How do they keep like, why do they keep switching?" And I realized it's because they have a remote and they don't have to get up, but, like, growing
Mm.
up, not having a remote, you just sat on the couch and watched the commercials because you weren't gonna get up every time there was a commercial and,
Right.
like, change the channel.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah, now it's like a YouTube ad comes on, and it's a race to the remote to hit next,
yeah, you have to, "Oh,
or
I have to
skip.
sit here and watch this?" Like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy the
Like,
premium so I
"Press
don't
the
have to."
skip
Yeah.
button." I'm like, "Wait a second, guys, like, this is a Liberty Mutual ad, these are usually funny."
Yeah, like, I can't handle 60 seconds of commercials now, but growing up,
No.
it was like, that's all you did.
Yeah.
Kids don't know how good they have it.
No, they don't. Well, with that being said, appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Adios.